Nicole and Briana are lined up on the grid. It's lights out, and away we go on this week's grid walk.
F1 announced that starting this season, they're going to be doing a children's-focused broadcast. And what this means is that they're putting out, in collaboration with Sky Group, an alternate broadcast option that is going to make an F1 race more easy to understand, palatable to an all ages audience. Because F1 can be confusing to new fans. I can only imagine a young 5-year-old just being excited about the cars going around, but probably not learning a lot as they discuss the intricacies of whether or not, did Yuki Tsunoda deserve a penalty there? There's so much you could do to tailor a race to a younger audience. So I think this is a really great thing they're rolling out. They're also bringing in commentators that are of the age that they're targeting. So they're doing a whole casting call around it.
I love this idea. I think this is something that is, again, we talk all the time about companies, organizations want to get younger audiences because then you have a customer for so much longer. So having kids be interested in Formula One, and maybe it's not because their family or their guardians or anyone in their life is interested in Formula One, but it's just something that is accessible to them, one, and two, presented in a way that is interesting, I find very exciting about the future of the sport. And I just think it's just really great. I can't imagine just seeing a bunch of younger kids at races because they want to be there, and having a rooting interest and all that type of stuff is so cute and exciting.
The interview content we're gonna get when they bring in these younger broadcasters and they get to sit down with Lewis Hamilton and interview him, it's gonna be really wholesome. I'm also just a big advocate for more choice in the marketplace. So the more different options you have of where and how to consume the race, I think the better. Because they're not taking away the main feed. If you love Sky Sports' normal broadcasting option, you're still going to have that. But then, your friends who have kids, might be able to throw this option on for their kids as well. So I think it's all addition and choice is always a win. And this got both of our brains thinking, kind of where they always are. It's not that this got us thinking. Our brains are always thinking about this. If we could add alternate feeds that we could watch F1 through, what would we want them to be? So I'm going to pitch to you some additional choices I would love for us to have. I know you have some to pitch to me. The way this is going to work is that we have to do 60-second elevator pitches. I didn't prep for mine at all. I just wrote down the idea. Let's see how that works. Cool. And then the other person is going to have to greenlight the idea, send it back for review, or just completely nix the idea. No, that we're not going to put any of our fake production money into that idea. Brain. Okay. Which one do I want to start with?
I'm so worried you're going to have one or both of mine because I really like mine in them.
Yeah, I'm sitting here do I start with the one I'm the most excited about, or do I start with the one that I think you're most likely to have?
Start with the one you're most excited about.
Okay, this is kind of a middle ground. I don't know if this is the one this is the one I would be the most excited about for F1 globally, but not the one I, as a F1 viewer, would be the most excited about. And it's that I think F1 should do their version of a ManningCast. Okay, you're about to hear us talk about why F1 should do their version of the ManningCast. This was obviously recorded before F1 announced that they were doing exactly that. But instead of cutting out the footage, we thought that it was such a great explanation as to why this was a good idea, and they're doing it, and it is still a good idea. So we're leaving in the pitch that we make, and then we'll come back afterwards and give you our reactions to it actually happening. And spoiler alert, I think Nicole's a little excited.
I have so many feelings. I feel like this is a fever dream.
And if you don't watch the NFL, the ManningCast has the two Manning brothers. They sit there and they watch the Monday Night Football game together, and they commentate on it, but they commentate on it from the point of view of a quarterback. So they teach you a lot. And then they bring in guests and they just goof off. And then like the game could be going on and you just feel like you're sitting on the couch with two of the most famous quarterbacks in NFL history watching the game. I think they should do that for F1.
So follow-up questions.
Okay.
Who are the two people? Is it former drivers? Is it former team principals? Are they related?
I don't think they need to be related. I think it needs to be a former driver and two former drivers, I think, because it's the player deal, but they need to be friends and they need to not currently be broadcasters. So I'm not the best at fan casting for something like this, but like Nico Rosberg, Jensen Button, like there's like guys who do this professionally now. That's not what I want. I don't want professional. We are just sitting on a couch, two dudes chilling, watching the race with you. Like I want that level of unhinged. So like, honestly, it would be like as a selfish, like I'd want to see Seb, but I don't think he's unhinged enough for it.
Yeah, he's not. It would be definitely too professional and
Kimmy.
Talk about real things.
Yeah, I think Kimmy is like a good level of unhinged, but he would need to be with someone he's good friends with to pull out the personality. But again, I'm bad at fan casting these kinds of things, but that's the archetype we need. Like two drivers who are friends who are not currently professionals in the space.
Or maybe two podcast co-hosts who...
That's a different pitch.
Already film themselves reflecting. I would love this. I think this would be... I also have like the hot take where I sometimes, depending on the game, enjoy the ManningCast because it's so ridiculous and backwards and wild. I would love to see F1 lean into that like silliness, and already ESPN's like doing this with football. So like, you want to keep it fancy and fun and bring a new sport into it. Like,
yeah. In full transparency, I'm not a ManningCast viewer like that, but I like watching ManningCast highlights, like the funny things that happened. But that's because I'm a nerd and I want to see like people break down the plays that I'm watching. Like I don't actually personally love the sitting on the couch with the two former players vibe, but I think it's great television. Like I can understand, not for me, but needs to be an option in F1. Shocked that it's not currently an option for F1.
Agreed. Well, I'm throwing my fake money at it because
Woo!
There you go, greenlit. I cannot believe that Daniel Ricciardo and Will Arnett are going to be having an alternative broadcast. I feel like ESPN is in my house and listens to everything I consume, and they're like, she pays for F1 TV, but look over here. I can't even believe this is happening.
I can't believe that a mere 36 hours after we recorded a segment pitching why F1 needs their version of the ManningCast, that they announced it and we held the footage. Like, yeah. Imagine if we dropped this segment that everyone's listening to right now last week and it dropped the same day that this was announced. I really like being right.
I completely, like, okay, so your manifestation powers, I think we need to put to, like, to use with our knowledge, and, like, really, I have, like, a list of friends/enemies that, like, I think we could, like, manifest some things for, and, but if we had released that footage, I understand that shows take more than 8 minutes to like plan, especially at the scale of ESPN, but I just would have convinced myself that ESPN is listening to Gridwalk and threw together that whole show, and they're like, here you go, you wanted it so bad, here it is.
Okay, I realized that we just dove right into our thoughts and feelings about this without outlining what this is. It is Omaha Productions and ESPN. Omaha Productions is the production studio that does the ManningCast, that is run by the Manning brothers. They're doing essentially what feels like a trial of 3 alternate broadcasts for F1 races with Daniel Ricciardo and Will Arnett, which, yes, sounds like a Nicole Katz fever dream. If you're like, wow, who's this show made for? Nicole Katz. That's who this show's made for.
And I want to preface, it's not, I love my F1 TV broadcast. I will have multi-viewer open on my computer, so I have all of my stuff open at the exact same time. I do not prefer the ESPN broadcast at all. I do love shenanigans. So both is where I will go.
Well, this is also the first weekend, so you've yet to watch it to see, like, you might end up really liking it, really hating it. We'll see. I really think there is little to no chance that you hate it. Maybe it won't be your favorite thing, but it will be for the Canadian GP, the US GP, and the Las Vegas GP this year. And I think they're trialing two things. One, they're trialing to see if this broadcast works and if people are going to watch it. And I think, two, Daniel Ricciardo is trialing to see if he likes broadcasting. So it's an interesting test.
Yeah, I was going to say, so I have unbelievable mixed feelings about it in the sense that, like, if he has too much fun and likes it so much, like, this boy is soft launching a career in commentating right now in, like, a way that is, like, the Daniel Ricciardo fashion. And it's like, okay, if he has fun and, like, if, this broadcast is any measure of success that ESPN wants it to continue happening and he's enjoying it enough, I don't see him returning to the grid. Not like, I'm just really trying to like pop my reality bubble of like what I expect to be happening, and like that is so what I foresee happening. But if he's enjoying himself and if I enjoy the broadcast, then like great, I get more Daniel Ricciardo content than I'm kind of currently getting. And with Will Arnett, which again, if you're new here, I absolutely love everything that has to do with pop culture and like anything, and especially when it's related to Formula One. So this is like crossing paths of two of my favorite things. So very, very hyped to see what this becomes. I'm also someone that enjoyed the like disorganized chaos of the ManningCast, especially like when it first started, of like, wow, no one knows how to like do a Zoom room of this. And I'm just kind of excited to see like a level of that for F1. It's very interesting to see that like the first sport that ESPN chooses to kind of use this template for is F1. I think that's really crazy, and the races tend to be more popular with US viewers and Daniel Ricciardo, US fan base. It makes sense why they're picking these races for this.
So we need to roll back. You made so many smart points. But in the middle
I'm sorry, I'm so excited about all of this.
No, I know. I love this. You made so many smart points. I want to respond to the smart points. But I need to roll back to the one not smart thing you said in there. And it deserves this.
Oh, no.
You really think that this is Daniel Ricciardo soft launching his media career? That boy soft launched his media career 4 years ago when he left Red Bull. Like he said, see ya, Red Bull. I no longer want to be an F1 driver, whether he realized it or not.
So maybe that was soft launch. This is full on hard launch.
Yes, like, this is a hard launch.
Official. It is here. I have my wonderful, trendy suit that I wear at the ESPN fancy desk, and like, there's.
Well, so
that's why is it going to be a Zoom? Are they going to be in a studio?
Right.
What is this going to?
Are they going to be at the GP?
Yeah,
like that is something I hadn't thought about, because I do think that part of the to contrast with Nicole's extreme enthusiasm for this, I'm not a ManningCast watcher with the NFL. Like, it's not really my thing. I like watching ManningCast highlights afterwards and like seeing the funny shenanigans that went down, but it's not my preferred viewing method of the NFL.
To be fair, she's also an Eagles fan and has something to root for. Well, I am a Jets fan and just have to be there. So
yeah, that's fair. Well, it's also only Monday night.
Right.
We don't. I could go off on an NFL tangent for ages. Right. But I do think part of the allure of the ManningCast is that it's not well done, and that it feels like you're sitting in their living room with them. So I'm intrigued how they transfer this concept over to F1, and do they purposely just say, yep, Zoom from your basement? Like, what is... I'm intrigued if that's going to be the vibe, and I hope it is. I want to see Daniel Ricciardo struggle to open a Zoom, and like it needs to have some element of unprofessionalism in order for this to work, in my opinion.
I agree. It's what makes it so silly and weird is that you like that's what kind of reminds you like, oh, I'm watching two athletes, pop culture individuals. I don't, however you want to like label F1 driver and Lego Batman are like doing an F1 broadcast, and that's like that potential chaos is what will make it very fun and very different.
I will say that what makes me really hesitant about this concept is I think the other thing that I think makes the Manning brothers broadcast work is that they are really good friends. Obviously, they're brothers, and I am not convinced of the duo they chose. I think Daniel Ricciardo is a no-brainer. You have to put Daniel Ricciardo in there. I am not super convinced that Daniel Ricciardo plus Will Arnett will make that same kind of TV magic. But I hope it does, because I want this to work. Even though it's not going to be something I watch, I want this to work. I think it's so exciting when broadcasters do things that are innovative and different, and I like to see ESPN investing in F1. So I want this to work. But I'm more skeptical. I don't know if this has all the right ingredients.
I'm keeping my fingers crossed for Will Arnett's improv skills and just like Daniel Ricciardo's ability to be able to talk to like a wall. But I can definitely see where that's coming from. It was a very surprising choice, I thought. I mean, in some ways I see it with like his involvement with like F1 podcasts and things, but he's also very recent and new, however you want to label new as an F1 fan to like this space. So I felt like a very bold choice in ESPN, very purposeful. So we'll see a lot this weekend, or I'll see a lot, and I will be reporting back to you all of my thoughts and feelings because I'm very excited for this.
I'm just excited to see how excited you are. Like, I think I'm going to get more text messages about things Daniel Ricciardo says this weekend than things that happen on track. Because it's been a while since you've gotten to turn on an F1 race and see Daniel Ricciardo. So I'm happy for you.
Yeah, and I'm just hoping he's not going to be like decked out in Red Bull gear. So that'll be like a plus if he's in a suit instead of like in a Red Bull polo. Maybe he is and I just have to deal with it. But, you know.
All right, what's your first pitch?
Okay. So I was trying to lean into like current sponsors and things, and they've recently re-enhanced their deal with Paramount Plus and kind of leaning into like what could be within that domain. So I thought of alternative broadcast options that every race, and there could be like multiple to pick from, whether depending on like your preference and your age range, that the commentators are characters from a Paramount program. So whether you have SpongeBob and Patrick as the commentators for the Spanish Grand Prix, or God, what else is on Paramount Plus all of a sudden? Or the drag queens from RuPaul's Drag Race commentating.
Yes, greenlit. That's it. Yep. Please.
And you can have multiple broadcasts, and they could all just be like different people. And it's like, again, I guess this feels very kind of similar, but not like exactly ManningCast with extra guests. But literally, the commentators, you can pick the feed you want, and it could be related to a movie that's coming out. It could be just SpongeBob. But I think it would appeal and make it more interesting for the people. You'll be getting the information, but you'll be getting it in a ridiculous voice and a little bit more of a story.
I don't think it's that similar to the ManningCast because there's only so many things you can change about a production to make it unique. I think this is a whole other ballgame. It's like fish out of water. Like imagine, like now I'm just imagining a broadcast booth with like the winner of last year's RuPaul Drag Race, RuPaul, and like Will Buxton. I want that. I want that so badly.
Oh
that
my
just
God,
sounds
I want to
incredible.
see Will Buxton and RuPaul in the same room.
Yeah, like, and I actually think it would be incredible. I think he would fully lean into it and like, yeah, like this is, yep, greenlit.
Right, and remember, everyone still has their regular broadcast, so don't worry. Like, people aren't, SpongeBob is going to come in and flip your broadcast upside down, but there's, an alternative.
Imagine if he did.
Channel.
Like, imagine if he used the great tech.
I love it.
Like, the fact that we haven't gotten like fake slime on like a winner at the end, or like I just want like SpongeBob trying to get his boating license to like weave. Oh my gosh. I could talk about SpongeBob and F1 integrations for hours.
Okay, cool. Well, I'm glad that we already have broadcast greenlit, so go us.
All right, I'm going to go with something a little more serious for my next one. And by serious, I mean definitely focused on like a specific unit of the current F1 fan base. I'm not talking about slime. I think there should be like a data cast. So I have live timing, and I do a lot on my notepad to pull the data and apply it to the race. So, for example, like having numbers about your driver and how they're gaining on the person that they're trying to catch, or where they are in relation to, like, I spent all of the Spanish GP watching Lewis in relation to Carlos because that was the fight. And even if they weren't, like, even if they were a couple of cars away in the beginning of the race, like, I knew that was the fight to watch. So I think there's a lot of great tech where you can integrate that instead of me having 6 windows open with all the data I need. There can be professionals who integrate that all together and are telling this data story of the race. Things like pit stop windows and like where they're going to come out. Like, oh, if Lewis pit now, he would come out here. Like, I think there's just little bits of data, and then you get a pair of commentators that are good at doing that stuff on the fly with a group of producers that can feed them information. I think there should be a whole data focused cast.
I was like, I think like you are needed for this to exist. Like, I think it like
there's people who are far better than me, but thank you.
But like, just the way that you watch races and how we've discussed like your way of watching things and like the numbers and things, and being able to come out of a race or anything and be like, this is what all of this means, and immediately having that right away, like in your brain, or like having that in a cast would be so very helpful to people, because it's very helpful to me that I basically have that with you when it's like numbers that I can't be running at the exact same time or where to be looking. I think it would be really educational and great for fans new and old, especially with like new qualifications and like regulations being released that like every year could be a little bit different. Who knows with the circuit and things. I would love that. As when first becoming a fan, I feel like many people would find that overwhelming, but I think there is a good part of the population that would thoroughly enjoy it and gain something from it.
Yeah. If there's a children's cast that's focused on bringing young fans into the sport, I think we should have some cast options that are focused on long-term nerds. That's what I'm going with here.
I love that. So yes, I throw my money at it because I think the data area of F1 should become more mainstream. I think people get very overwhelmed by it very easily, and I think it can open up new parts of the sport, new understanding of the sport that like not everyone has full grasp on. And see, it's not that scary.
And if we had a data cast, they wouldn't have to do it for themselves like I'm doing now. They instead just have someone doing it for them. It's like, oh, that's so cool. Here's the live strategy. But what is your second pitch?
Okay. My second pitch is not from a selfish place at all. And it would have nothing to do with that. I would be considered a content creator in this space. But I think for every race, for during the pre-race, during the race, post-race, there is a selected online content creator group pairing that is in charge of the fan production, that is in charge of what drivers are interviewed, what is asked, and what is discussed during the race, and like can pitch that whole story, pitch that whole storyline. And it is, again, a separate broadcast, so don't worry, you're still going to have that. But for people that want more of like an individual fan experience, or if there's someone that has a really large fan base and it wants to become like a watch party in some sense, but giving online creators a little bit more access and ability to develop a storyline in the F1 space. And I know how outlandish that is, but I was dreaming big, and obviously in the world of different perspectives on it. So that's my spicy one.
I know you said it's outlandish, but it's the one that we've pitched so far that my brain immediately started churning into, that means we could do this, and that means we can do that. And I think an area of opportunity, particularly for long, like races are not short, quick sprints to the end. And I think in the way we watch, so I will watch and I'll watch all this data and you'll watch onboards and like all these things, but I also have Twitter open the entire time. And I think there's, in every race, even the most boring races, 3 or 4 moments where the discussion of the online space shifts in what they're talking about. And just having people involved in a broadcast channel that is more social media and internet focused, where they can, in the moment, integrate what is being discussed online. Oh, okay, online they're talking and making funny memes about George Russell's sweat. Oh, let's start showing some of those on the screen. Let's integrate that. Let's have the broadcasters talk about it more and share, and just to your point, like making it more of a fan experience and making everyone, because I think the stat is something that less than 1% of F1 fans will ever go to an F1 race. So I think a separate broadcast to get everyone included all over the globe into what's going on in the broadcast would be amazing. And I do think that content creators would be the perfect faces for a broadcast like that.
And we talk a lot about, and I love, that's literally the exact kind of like mindset that I was like going for of involving the online discourse, because the amount of times that we'll be watching a race and I also have Twitter open, and whether it's like seeing what everyone's talking about, or like I feel like I find out what like the yellow flag was from Twitter before I find out from like a broadcast. And so having like that, it feels so much more current and almost more relevant. And also, as everyone hears us talk about 1,000 times, that F1 is not just about the fight for the driver's championship or the constructor's championship. There are stories up and down the grid. So having a set of content creators that are able to develop their story throughout the weekend of what that race is, I would love to see, because I think coming from that fan perspective, and literally that's like what we do every single week, is not even create stories, but talk about the ones that are already there and bringing attention to them. And I think it could be really beneficial. And you're already having, coming in with fans or great exposure to find new content creators that way. I would love to see it.
And something that what you just said really made me realize, I think for the first time, I don't know why I've never put this together. And I know we compare F1 to the NFL a lot. It's just the other sport we watch the most. But in the NFL, every single team has dedicated reporters for that team. So there's big global reporters and news outlets, and then there's like dedicated, these are the Eagles beat writers that I follow, essentially. And in F1, that's not really the case. There's just a lot of global reporters, and then there's the Italian press that just loves Ferrari or hates Ferrari, depending on the week. So I do think that in addition to what you're saying, I think bringing people in and having dedicated, even just through F1's arm, if you have dedicated people and creators focused on, my beat this week is Haas, and I'm going to follow the full story of Haas. And then if I was a Haas fan and I knew that Nicole Katz was in the pit lane as the Haas beat reporter this week, and if I wanted updates about the Haas story, I check in with Nicole. Like, that is something that is really missing in the F1 ecosystem, in my opinion, because then like you get like a fun, like it means that teams like Williams and Haas and these smaller back of the grid teams, their stories don't get so left behind. I'm sure there's just as much going on down there that isn't actually being reported because we have such a limited amount of media outlets and they're only reporting on what they can because there's just only so many people that are F1 reporters. So yeah, I think not only is your pitch greenlit, but I think the legs off of your pitch are endless.
Yay! Great. Wonderful. I didn't think I could be more excited about an idea that doesn't involve SpongeBob's voice, but never say never. But yeah, I thought that could be really fun and unique, and something that I was just thinking of things that I would want to watch or wish I had.
Of all the pitches, I want Paramount to sponsor a specific race, and I need Max Verstappen to get slimed.
I would love it. Although I was always jealous of people that got slimed. And I don't want to be jealous of Max, so I'll try to be like, oh, it's gross, and not be envious, but slime always looked cool.
I just love when the celebrities and the personalities who don't seem to have a great sense of humor or didn't grow up watching SpongeBob have to get slimed. And that just, Max Verstappen to me reads as I don't think he'd have a great sense of humor, which means I would find it funny.
I had like an original broadcast idea where like the radios were like characters' voices, and I had like this like vision of like Oscar the Grouch as like Christian Horner, and like Checo's like Cookie Monster, and like just something like, and I was like, that seems like a little hard to understand.
That would need like a full like video production, like we would have to stitch in here like your pitch separate. I also think before we wrap up this segment, we should share that your godson, is Cameron your godson?
He's not my god. He's my cousin. His sister is my goddaughter. But I have a cousin who is 7 years old, and he is a big Mercedes fan. He likes watching F1, and he watched the Spanish Grand Prix this weekend. So when I was talking to him about, what do you want as an F1 race as a kid, his exact answer was, I want race cars that transform into BB-8. So he needs F1 race cars that are Transformers and Star Wars. And that was the pitch. And I think it's a great idea, except that Disney's not involved in this deal.
Disney owns ESPN.
Disney does, right. I'm such in a Paramount Plus headspace that I'm just like, but it was he started so serious. And I mean, he was serious the whole time. But I was like, It's like race cars. But it needed to, and then he's like, it needs to be orange. And I'm like, why? And that's when we got the transform into BB-8.
Right.
So
and I thought it was the best pitch. I think his pitch trumps our pitches.
I agree.
By leaps and bounds, because I would also love to see F1 cars transform into BB-8.
Don't forget to like and subscribe before you leave for more F1 videos, lots of F1 fun, but you watched this whole video, you know you enjoyed it, so go check out the full episode. Promises a lot of really chaotic fun that you're not going to want to miss, and you're definitely going to want to see. Click right here. Click, click, click. Click, 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 click.